Okay, last video we talked about cylinders in perspective. We talked about using a perspective grid to build them, and ellipses, and do I have another one? Yes, and then a freehand one, okay? Now today we're going to do something a little bit more simple, not as crazy, but a little bit more difficult to kind of grasp sometimes. We're going to work on cylinders, or not cylinders, cones, okay? Now a cone, I'm going to use just a plane in perspective. And one thing that I can do about this is I can actually use this plane to give me a lot of information. If I draw an X in there from corner to corner, then I know exactly where the center of that line of this plane is. And I can draw straight forward or north, if you will. And so I have this kind of center line, almost kind of like an arrow or something coming directly off. Oh, almost even potentially a really not great kite. So I've got this as a circle, or I've got this as a plane, and I need to put a cone inside of it, okay? So just like the other time with the cylinder, you're going to draw your ellipse inside this plane. Next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to want to make sure that I go from the top of this line, doesn't matter how long it is, typically it's better if it's a little bit taller, but I'm going to go from the top of this line to this corner or this ellipse, but I have to make sure that I go tangentially. I want it to kind of blend smoothly into this curve, so I'm not going to come back so there's a tiny little kink or a bump out. I'm going to try and make it as smooth as I can. So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to kind of go, okay? So you can see that it's smoothly coming into this curve, and I'm going to do the same on this side. And you want them to meet at this point, at the top of your cone. Okay? This one's not as good. Okay. And so then when I'm going to darken my cone, I'm just going to come back. Okay, and now I have my cone dark. I drew my cylinder in a cube. I'm going to draw the same thing in here. I've got this square here, so I have a forward and a backward. I have a front side and a back side. And for this one, it is much more simple than doing it with the cylinder, okay? So for this, I'm going to do this to the vanishing point. And all I do is I just go from one point, let's say right about there, okay? And I'm just going to go back tangentially. And then I'm going to go back to this side, what it would be. Okay, so now I've got my cast shadow, but I need a core shadow. On the cylinder, the core shadow was perfectly vertical. It was just straight up and down, and it was the consistent width the whole time. But since this is a cone, I'm not going to want it to be perfectly smooth or perfectly parallel. I draw my minor axes, okay? And then I'm going to draw from here to that top, same principle involved. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw from here just over a little bit. And now I've got my core shadow lines. So that is a cone in perspective. Once you get kind of used to it, you can draw your ellipse. I like to do this. I'll draw my core shadow or my cast shadow line. I'll draw my core shadow line, draw vertical, I come up, come down. Now that's a problem right there, so I'd have to fix that. And then come back here. Okay, so I have my cone itself. I pick a point, we'll just say right there. And then when I come back from that point to here, tangentially, okay, so then, and I'm going to do this a little slower so that you guys see what a good shade will be. Remember, always rotate your pencil or your pen. Okay, so then I have my cast shadow. Now I need to do my core shadow. I have my minor axes. And just like with the other one, this is going to taper. And just like with the cylinder, I have a white area on the backside of my core shadow. Okay, but now I got to come back and I got to add some line values. So darken that back line up, and then I'm going to come around. And then just because it's me, I draw a thin line there, and I draw my front little highlight. Those are cones. We'll say one through two. Now, you can use this plane to build from. I think it does help. Again, I drew a plane in perspective. Okay. I crossed it to know where the center is. And then I chose which is the front and which is the back. This is the front because if I drew my line here, this one is a little bit less than this in terms of degree. And so I'm going to draw a line right through the center. And then I draw like that. And so basically I kind of X, 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 and X, and then I draw my stuff through there.